Those who are living a life of freedom have optimized themselves and their lives in pursuit of one thing: choice. They've created the financial, geographical, and time freedom to do what they want, when they want to. But they've also created freedom from their internal limitations, their story, their biology, and their character. In this podcast, The Freedom Project, it is my attempt to shortcut your learning curve to having total freedom in your life so you can go and do more cool shit. I'm going to bring you deep dives into some of the most inspiring adventure athletes and business owners in the world. I'm also going to give you the key concepts of my coaching process to adventurepreneurs so you can start applying that to your life today. So here is another episode of The Freedom Project. Welcome to The Freedom Project podcast. My name is Tom Foxley. Today I am interviewing Mitch Hutchcraft, an adventurer and wildlife enthusiast who grew up in Cambridgeshire and soon developed a passion for the mountains. At 16, he climbed Kilimanjaro alone, and at 18, he visited Everest Base Camp. Mitch studied zoology, joined the Royal Marines, and later rode 3,000 miles across the Atlantic and cycled 5,000 kilometers across the USA. Now, he's on a mission to, and wait for this, he's going to swim the British Channel, cycle to India, run to Everest, then climb it, all the while supporting veterans and wildlife conservation through SAVSIN. You can discover more at 12,000kilometers to Everest.com. There's a piece in this podcast which I cannot wait for you to listen to. It's all about building a catalogue of whys, and I think it's really powerful. It's something I've used myself since in this exact way that Mitch phrased it, and it's mega useful. So enjoy this conversation, and here is Mitch Hutchcraft. So Mitch, welcome to the show, man. Absolute pleasure to be speaking to you. Let's start with the very obvious question. Talk me through this challenge, mate.
It's a dream that started a few years ago. When I left the Corps in 2021, so immediately luckily got roped into rowing the Atlantic, and that's where the dream for this big one kind of came. Because 12 hours of rowing every day for 7 weeks, you've got a lot of time to think. So you're always thinking, like, what's next? And your mind starts wondering. And for me, mate, like Everest has always been like the big dream. As a kid, it's not the most fantastic mountain, but it's just, with it being the top of the world, it's always been the dream as a kid. So I always wanted to climb it from sea level. That's always been kind of like the dream for me. And then I've always wanted to swim the channel as well, just as another kind of mad tangent dream. So somewhere in the middle, I just decided to try and link the middle bit together. And so when I was rowing, it kind of just popped into my head. If we can put that in the middle, then it becomes essentially like a triathlon. So I can swim the channel and then cycle from France to India, and then go on foot from sea level in India to the top of Everest. And it's a dream that was just born from that, with no thought of it like, getting big or anything, just obviously wanting to do it for a good cause. And it's just grown from there, mate. And it's what it is today.
Yeah, it's in the best way possible. It's a mental thing to do. I love it. It's absolute, the time, the training, the commitment to it. I'm sure the financial aspects is kind of a big kind of cost and big commitment to it. Where are you at right now? I think we're 60 something days out.
Yeah, around 65 days. It depends on the thing, because the actual start line, the start date is between the 10th and the 15th of September. There's like a 5-day window. There's no exact date. It's just you got to be ready. And when they tell you you're swimming the channel tomorrow, you're swimming the channel tomorrow.
Okay, so it's condition dependent?
Yes, yeah.
Perfect. What's the bit that you are most apprehensive about?
To be honest, it is probably the first and the last bit. So swimming the channel and the actual Everest bit, because they're the two things, obviously, which are not in my control at all. You are at the mercy of nature. You're at the mercy of, with the swim, you're at the mercy of the temperature and the tides and the currents and everything. And with Everest, obviously, it's the same. The weather, the temperature, all the aspects that could go wrong. And so, ironically, I'd probably say, but if I had to pick one, it's probably the swim. Even though it's one day compared to 4 months of cycling, it's probably the bit. It's just because it's day one, it's a bit that can go wrong, and it's such an important part, and it's such a massive challenge in itself. That's probably the bit that I am apprehensive about, but excited as well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. The thought, like the fact that some people spend so long training to to only swim the channel,
Yeah.
and that's their kind of crowning achievement. And too right, it's a huge thing to do. But then to kind of get your like tie yourself down, get on your bike, and go for how many mile bike ride? It's
Well,
crazy.
it's just under 10,000 k the bike ride, so yeah, it's dragging yourself out of the channel and then cracking a 6,000 mile bike ride.
Yeah. What's the route that you take? I know like there's probably a lot to that, but like how do you
Yeah, so it's
cycle
through
to
Europe.
that
So
area
it's
of India?
like it's kind of the easier part. Obviously, is through Europe, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Serbia, Bulgaria, into Turkey. But then obviously the tricky part is so we go through Iran, Pakistan, and India. So at the moment, that's obviously the only tricky part. All the visa applications and everything's in process right now for like Iran, and because it's a tricky part, you have to long process. You know, you have to be accompanied and babysat every single day, but you have to go through a travel agency based in Iran who have to apply for the visa for you and write a letter of recommendation. You know, just to be even allowed. So we're still waiting on that, and it's obviously so a lot of things in the air, but essentially it's all Europe, Turkey, Iran, Pakistan, India, Nepal.
Yeah, the logistics of something like this are insane. And so I kind of just about a month ago, I got back from Pakistan, did some kind of 6,000 meter stuff, like so kind of fairly big. But the logistics, even though I was part of a group, were huge. And you
Yeah.
kind of realize how much is involved in that's just like 2 and a bit weeks in one country. And you think about going over all those different countries, and you realize that's a decent effort that you're putting in there. How are you doing the logistics? Are you running that all yourself, or is that you got
Yeah,
someone else
so
kind of
I
helping you out?
mean, 99% of it has been me since I started planning this kind of last year. Well, for 3 years really. But luckily, I do have some help now with the great team I've got and the producers that are now on board. But most of it is just me. I'm still finishing up most of the parts now. That's why I had to quit. That's why I had to quit work full time back in February, just to kind of make this a reality. You know, because it's just every day. It's just constant to make this happen. Not just the training aspect of it physically, but it's more the logistical nightmare which comes with it. But it's not crazy. I mean, it's especially the first stage. You know, the obviously the swim is there's a lot of logistics even to sort the swim out, which people don't realise. You have to book a boat often years in advance. You have to get the crew. You have to pay thousands. You have to you have to kind of like get a coach and it's just there's a lot involved in just day one. But the cycle, the first stage is from what I learned cycling across the United States is it's hard, yeah, but you can kind of wing it in a way because especially in Europe when food, accommodation, everything's readily available, it's kind of much easier and you can't plan. You cannot actually sit down and plan a cycle touring trip. As anyone who's done cycle touring will tell you, you don't know if you're going to get when you're going to get an injury, when you're going to get a flat. You don't know. I had like 19 punctures in America, which wasn't that much, but like you can't really set a target. You just have to go prepared and improvise and adapt, like when you're on the ground, obviously, and just kind of hope for the best. But things have become a little bit better now, hopefully, with the help now with a team. Producing producing like obviously the kind of content and the amazing stuff that's going to come with this is hopefully now that's going to come with a camper van essentially. So obviously that is there, that's accommodation and a lot of logistics sorted, even though I'm still going to be carrying the majority of my kit and everything. Obviously having that place to crash every night, unlike America, without having to worry about which bridge or which forest are you sleeping in tonight, you can just kind of relax a little bit more. So there's a lot involved. And Iran, obviously, all the hotels and everything have to be pre-booked because it's part of the terms and conditions of travelling to that country. And then Pakistan and India, we have support as well there from a couple of people and companies. So hopefully it will all, as you know, it will fall into place. But a lot of it is still, a lot of it won't happen until last minute, but we'll get there.
Yeah. So is that camper van following you the whole way, or is it just the Europe leg?
So, I mean, at the moment, hopefully, when we sort that, it'll be right up until the Turkey-Iran border, and then obviously from there we have the Iranian guide vehicle escort that has to take you 2,500 k just in one country. It's a big country, And then when we get to Pakistan and India, then we are looking at the moment. We're looking into a similar thing. You're looking at a van slash, kind of for the team and escort, and crash where you can. And but obviously, when needs be, you have hotels. And but yeah, similar situation for Pakistan and India. Hopefully, we will source a vehicle of some sort. With the support we have from other companies, so hopefully it will fall into place. But it's one of the other things that is obviously on the list to be completely confirmed.
Yeah, I think the obvious question here is like, how are you dealing with the funding aspect of this and the work and like supporting yourself during the time? Like that seems like a huge undertaking.
Yeah, it's bonkers, mate. I mean, as anyone will tell you, fundraising for any expedition is just like, it's crazy. No matter how big it is or how much it stands out. That's not why I chose it, but obviously I had the hope that because of this had such a kind of crazy aspect of it, people would be interested. And luckily now people are starting to kind of obviously take notice, and people are starting to come on board now, which is amazing. But most of it, I had to save up for myself quite a bit. I mean, I'm still kind of work part-time just to pay my bills basically, and just do what I can. Savings that I had from years from like family members, that have passed away and stuff, is eating into my own stuff. But I know in the end it'll be worth it. And as with any expedition, like I say, it's keeping optimistic that when you start, as you may well know, for a lot of the times, the real support doesn't really happen until you begin, until you start, until you're actually a couple of months in, and people understand that you're serious about this and it's going to happen. Things start rolling in. So the aim is obviously to get into the best position possible by the start date, and then basically work your butt off, mate, and hope for the best.
Yeah, there'll be so much content that comes out of it, and that will generate so much attention.
Yeah.
But trying to capture that from your perspective, like having the wherewithal to go, right, sort your shit out, like this needs to go on the gram. That's an extra load to it, an extra element of the kind of the trip that's necessary.
Exactly. And that was a big worry of mine, but luckily, as I say, now the last 2 months, now I have the most amazing team ever. I have the two same producers that produced the all the content for the Hardest Geezer and the Run Across Africa, are now my producers. So it's the same theory. So I now not have to worry about anything from day one. Every single bit of content is done through these professionals who are good friends of mine and now absolute legends in what they do. And obviously you only got to look at the success they had there to see that they know what they're doing, with the level of content. And they raised over £1 million for their charity and the exposure. So I'm very lucky, thankful to have them, because that whole aspect of capturing the journey, the highs and the lows, I'm now got no doubt at all that it's going to be it's in the best hands possible.
Yeah, so talk to me about the charity aspect and why this is important to you.
So it's for an amazing non-profit organisation who help mainly two things. So it's mental health for veterans and wildlife conservation. So I worked in zoos and in animal care before I joined the military. I got a diploma in zoology and animal care. So for me, animal care and welfare is massive. And I came across these guys in 2021, just before I cycled across the US. So I actually cycled across the US for them. So they've only been operating for the last few years. And I say they're a small organisation who make mental health courses using animals and nature. So they work with London Zoo, Whipsnade Zoo. So they work with zoos, and they've created a 5-6 day mental health course for veterans and anyone suffering with PTSD to actually come to the zoo and obviously work with the animals, use the animals as therapy. As anyone would tell you, animals used for therapy is just amazing, and it really helps them. But they also utilise the skills of these guys that are in need. So they utilise the skills of veterans that are transitioning into civilian life by sending them off to anti-poaching and wildlife conservation projects all over the world, but namely in Africa. So they're called SAVSIM. So SAVSIM, which stands for Savora Simul, Saving Together. So SAVSIM, they're based from London, and as I say, they just got back from a trip in South Africa, for example, dehorning rhinos. So saving the white rhinos by helping the anti-poaching effort over there. So twofold, mate. Mental health for veterans, for the guys and gals, and also wildlife conservation and the poaching. So for me, two massive things that are really close to my heart.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think what that does really nicely as well is one of the things that can be so challenging for veterans is that kind of that shift of purpose is very clear when you're in the military, like what you're doing with your life, even if it's at the end of it something you don't necessarily want to be doing for some people. But it's like you've got you know what you're there for, you know your role, you know your intentions, and
Yeah,
then upon leaving, it can be difficult for some, I think, to find that. So re-establishing that and kind of giving you that clear purpose, then
yeah,
there's something about the Corps as well, I think, in particular, but the military as a whole, where people just love animals. I don't know what it is. There's some his name that I won't share that you're probably aware of. I used to work with him both a little bit in the Corps and then outside as well. I used to do some landscape gardening with him, and he was a hard bootneck, but every time he would come across a worm whilst digging, he'd pick it up and move it and put it away. And I was like, mate, that's like a real shift in job roles here from
yeah.
being out in
That sounds
gathers
like it's
to
describing me, mate. Definitely. If I find a
yeah,
spider, I'm looking after it. That's been,
yeah,
yeah, that's kind of what it's about. And yeah.
nice, love it. Okay, so training, what's that looking like?
Oh, that's a big question. So yeah, obviously the question is like, how do you train for something like this? Because it's not just one aspect or one area. It's a swim, cycle, run, trek, and climb. So we're luckily working with some amazing people, like the full support of Loughborough University and all the people there. So it's all about just making the plan as best you can. So essentially, mate, 80-90% of training right now is swimming, because you have to just break it down. And obviously, the one thing that requires the most training is one thing. Obviously, one thing you can't just wing is swimming across the English Channel. So it's about getting through past day one as best as possible. That's not just, but we're not slacking. I still am cycling a couple of times a week to maintain it. But the cycling aspect as well, because the cycling, like I learned with America, and as you probably know, and the same thing I learned with the Atlantic, any kind of low impact endurance exercise, no matter how much you work and train for it, all you'll do is essentially, if I was to work my ass off right now, cycling for example, all it would do is make the first week of my 4-month cycle a bit more comfortable, but it would massively impede on the swimming training, if that makes sense. So I've just kind of broken things down, getting across the channel with still doing the element of cycling training, just to make it a bit easier. But as I said, mate, your body conditions when you're doing something of that length, a 4-month cycle, cause it's not a massively high intensity. We're not covering 400-500 kilometers a day. It's at a pace and a distance which is going to be manageable, and obviously you can take rests, still covering 9 hours of cycling a day, for 4 months, which is going to be long. But you can stop, you can have a rest, you can have a massage. It's one of these things. And like I said, like I've learned with the previous expeditions, your body condition, the human body is amazing. That's part of the reason I'm doing this, is to show everyone, that the human body is capable of amazing things. As you know, the only difference is the mindset. That's the only difference is just putting your head in the game. So yeah, but then obviously when it comes to the running and trekking, hiking, yomping type of training, that's zero, because there is no point. There is 0 point doing any running, any trekking, because after 4 months of cycling, the legs will obviously be 100% conditioned to cycling. So any training we've done running, yomping or anything like that will just be completely cancelled out, and it would have been a waste of time. So yeah, at the moment it's swimming with some cycling and two decent strength and conditioning workouts in the gym a week as well. 2 strength and conditioning programs made by Loughborough to really help maintain and strengthen up the key aspects of the things that are going to be needed. So obviously upper back for swimming, still doing squats and compound exercises to help with overall strength and function, basically. So yeah, so that's in a nutshell. It's swimming, cycling, and a bit of gym work, nothing else, because anything else would be waste of time and hindering the training that we need to get started in the expedition.
Yeah, I've heard that some people, when doing things like, for example, running across America, will use the first 20% as the training for it. So you
Exactly.
kind of build up into it. But I suppose you can't really do that with the swim. that has to be there, ready to go.
Yeah.
What was your swimming like before you started this challenge, or before
I
you
mean,
had
I've
your
always
run?
been a good swimmer, mate. I've always loved swimming and been a good swimmer, but I've never ever like swam competitively. I've never been part of a squad. I've never like been, swam like as part of a team. I've always just really enjoyed it and been strong. And like, so last month I went on a proper ocean channel swimming training camp in Croatia, like 70 Ks of swimming in 6 days. And that was a real like tester, an eye opener. And this was with guys like these are with guys and girls who have flown from America, Australia, people that used to swim like for like national level. These guys were like it was good, a great learning experience. And obviously I'm not as fast as them, and I'm not at that same level. But it was great because I now know and have confidence that I have the ability. I have the ability to get across safely, which is the main thing. Because it's not about breaking records. It's not about swimming in the fastest time possible. But obviously, it was just about being realistic and ensuring that I definitely have the ability in the ocean and swimming wise to get across. So which touch wood we can. My very close friend, who I was like my swimming partner over there, he just swam the Atlantic day before yesterday. Sorry, swam the Atlantic. He swam the Channel. He got across the Channel day before yesterday, and he's a really good friend of mine, and that gave me a lot of confidence because me and him were like, together, kind of very much the same. And yeah, and he managed to get across in 14 hours, and yeah, it's great. So
Strong.
putting in the hard work, but absolutely you have to put in the hard work, but getting there slowly.
Yeah, like it just sounds incredible. I love the idea of going to a dedicated camp like that because you learn through osmosis being around those type of people,
Yeah,
and also just
absolutely.
like the leveling up and seeing what's possible. What were the main things that you took away from that? Like even if it's technical things, I'm fascinated to learn like what the key takeaways were for you.
Key takeaways specifically is just kind of from a mentality standpoint, like just to relax, find a rhythm. Obviously, there's many like actual technical parts of swimming which I learned. The technique wasn't all there. Over rotating massively. So what I took from it was just basically to keep your head down, find your little place that you can go to just zone out and to really find that. I found through them, they telling me about where they go to train, in their head and this kind of stuff. So learning from them, and obviously, of course, watching the physical aspect of it and how they were doing it to help to improve my actual technique and things was great. So yeah, the combination of that of both.
Nice. When you spoke about that place people go to in their head, were there any themes of it or anything that you kind of particularly that stood out to you?
A lot of people were just talking. Yeah. So for me, it's like what I already knew in my head already. A lot of the people, they just obviously go to that. They flick through the places, and the things in their head which are motivating them. So people will be talking about, for example, one of the guys would say how their kids are motivating them, how they inspire their kids, for example, things like this. And it just comes back to it reminding me of obviously like resilience, and the whole theory behind it, and it just reminded me of and reinforced it, just like Ross Edgley's a big inspiration, and he put it best, resilience is simply a person's ability to strategically manage pain. So watching these guys, learning how people, that's all it is. It's simply just a person's ability to strategically manage pain, and some people can manage pain better than others. So it reminded me of seeing these people, how you just have to flick through the channels. All you need to do is flick through the channels of why you're doing something. For me, it's like big one is which I thought about a lot. Obviously, when things got bad, like tough over there was like my dad. My dad passing away at a young age was the big motivator. So for me, it's my dad, the charity, knowing all the friends and family that I'm inspiring now. So I know all I do, and it's learned me how to obviously you just flick through them channels one by one when things get bad, and the more channels you have, the better you are at strategically managing pain. Simple as that. And the more you do it, the better you get at it, as I'm sure you know, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a skill, and I find that since having been out of the corps, that that skill fade is insane. The kind of the resilience does go, and it's like you need to put the sets and the reps in continuously to keep it up. So having that as a tactic's really nice. But what else are you doing to build resilience, or are you trusting that it will grow as you go through the challenge, or are you drawing on your previous reserves?
I guess it's more like the last few years, building up on the reserves of what I've learned through, like, obviously through the time in the Corps, through the Atlantic, through the United States, through like the mountains that I've climbed in the last 6 months. Just for me, I just go back to the most horrible parts, the most horrible moments of like each of them, and I always just think when things get really shit, it's not as bad as that was, and just keep going. So for me, it's
What are those moments?
drawing back on them bad, not bad, because they're tough. Drawing back on them really important moments, which it's the whole get comfortable being uncomfortable. When you think back to the times you were so uncomfortable, you just get used to being comfortable in that moment, and yeah, so that's how I kind of deal with it.
Yeah. What are the moments that come to mind when you're thinking of those?
Specifically, it's a couple few examples. Just like with the Atlantic, when we had a time when it was like 2-3 days of crazy swell, and it was so hot you couldn't even. It was like laying in a sauna for 3 days when you weren't rowing, and you couldn't hardly move. Even to eat, it was so hot you could hardly move, because every time you'd be sweating so much that you'd honestly feel like you were going to pass out because it was so hot. And that was your kind of rest period, and then you'd be out in this giant swell rowing for 3 hours, and this lasted for a couple of days, and because you couldn't even obviously you couldn't open any hatches or windows because it was that bad. That's why it was so hot, and it was just. So I think back to like them couple of days and how mentally strong we all had to get through that, and then times in the US. So when things were really really low, and I remember like just times. I remember one time being stuck in like in a sandstorm in Texas, near El Paso, and it was actually like 80 to 100 kilometre an hour headwind in like a dust storm, in like a mini dust storm, and it's probably averaging about 7 miles an hour for about 11-12 hours straight. And I remember that day just like head down and just it hurting, but then just flicking through these channels just constantly in the head, just flicking, and then just for 12 hours. So I just kind of go back to them there are two moments that I can think of off the top of my head, which jump out, which jump out to me. They help me get through.
What do you think you learned about yourself in those moments?
You just learn how to deal with the moments. I just learned that mainly the most important thing you learn is that pain is temporary, which is the key thing, the key message, which once you learn that, and which is kind of the message you're trying to get across, once you learn that, that it will end. It's like the old plus sign, 500 metres to go, it's the same theory. That's the main thing I learned from all that, is that no matter how shit it is, just close your eyes, or don't close your eyes so you don't get hit by a truck, but close your minds and just remember that. That's the main thing I learned, that eventually, whether it's the end of the day or whether it's the end of whatever, it's going to end soon, and that you are going to be in a hot shower soon, and you're going to be in bed, or you're going to be all right.
Nice. That temporary notion is key, I think.
It's very key, yeah.
Have you done anything to train your mind specifically? And I know that's a very broad question, but it's always interesting to see where people take it.
I mean, not specifically. It's more a case of just drawing back on all the things I've done in the last few years, and the stuff I've had, and the kind of stuff within the family, with my father, and someone close in our family, took their own life, and I just kind of draw on the things. But in terms of strategies put in place, I'm very much like not winging it, but yeah, drawing back on the experiences from myself. To get through it all. The ADHD helps as well. So a bit of ADHD and coffee just gets you through.
It's a superpower in some ways. But what I find fascinating about you is like some people would go, and actually the vast majority of people, and there's nothing wrong with it, will go, well, I'm going to run the London Marathon for charity. I'm going to do a Tough Mudder for charity. There's a huge difference between that and the pretty extreme version of I'm going to self-powered, human-powered, going to get myself from British or English coast all the way over to India, and then climbing Everest. Like, that's a pretty extreme way to do it. Why do you think that appeals to you so much? Like, why do you think there's that extreme nature?
I'm not too sure. It's just again, it goes back to like from a young age, just always dreaming up big dreams and thinking and just pushing the boundaries from a young age and testing yourself. And but one of the main things trying to get out of this is just to show people that it's not about doing anything bigger than someone else. It's someone's 5K is the same as someone else's marathon. It's all proportionate, and it's never compare yourself to anyone else. But for me, it's just one of them. I've always thought, what's next? What can I do to make myself better, to push myself further, more physically and all that, and then joining the core and things like that, and that's basically that's kind of where it's come from, just to show that. I guess as well as I say that there's just less of a boundary in my mind, but I'm trying to break them boundaries down with people. That's part of the reason why this has changed. This mission has been limitless. This mission has become so important to me. Is to like trying to break down more boundaries in people's minds. That the only thing stopping you doing it is it's not physically. It's literally just that barrier in your head. That is it. So yeah, that's basically the long and short of it, mate.
Love it. Really love it. I know Everest isn't the most technical mounting
Yeah.
around, but it is a fucking epic thing to do. Incredibly difficult, and the altitude and the state you'll be in when you get there as well is going to be pretty interesting. How have you prepared from the technical mountaineering side of things?
Yeah, so obviously I wasn't massively. I mean, apart from like a few courses I'd done before, winter mountaineering and all that, and being a high altitude. Well, I'll go back to that exact question. The technical side of it wasn't as great. But for me, it was like even though I had some experience, I still needed to do one big kind of training trip to really give me the confidence to know that I'll be okay. So that's why 6 months ago I went and did Amadablam. For me, that was the tick in the box that like just gave me the confidence in my head that it will be okay, because it's a similar kind of conditions, fixed lines, ascenders, all the kind of normal stuff, but just on a much harder level than Everest. So I thought it's like with anything, as if you do something harder in training and all that, then it makes the real thing easier. So that was for me. It was a combination of like small courses I've done here and there. Obviously, some of the stuff you do in the Marines, and personal stuff I've done. Winter mountaineering. But then that key kind of Himalayan expedition to really just consolidate it all and make sure that you're happy.
Yeah, how's the Amadablam experience?
Best trip of my life by far. Like it was tough because I had an infection and it was just really really hard. And obviously it's like very very technical, but it was not surprisingly doable. But obviously the support you have is amazing. The guys are amazing, and it was just a very good eye-opening experience for me. Like I always kind of overthink. It might be the ADHD again, but I always overthink things. And I'm not saying it was easier than what I thought, because I was on my ass 100% at sometimes, you know what I mean? But it was just a very like humbling experience to be around so many amazing people and to get that experience.
Yeah. And what's your support looking like for Everest itself?
At the moment, we're still, it's kind of flipping between a few people. At the moment, it's like elite expeditions are helping with the logistics and things and all that up into it. Like same people, obviously, that I did Abu Dhabi with, and then hopefully the same with them. So yeah, the support on that side of stuff is great. Even when it comes down to like the people, the guys taking you through India, the guys kind of helping you get to Everest Base Camp itself, through the 350 Ks from Kathmandu even to get there, for example. Stuff like that is all kind of being handled, and we're in the process of sorting out the logistics for that.
Yeah. What comes to mind is that it's an epic individual effort to do what you're about to do and to create that, but it's reliant on so many different people to facilitate that.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So it's kind of scary, as you say, like when it's kind of out of your control in a lot of ways. Logistically, it's hard to kind of not process, but I've just come to learn, as you know, another key thing I've learned, and I'm sure you know, mate, is it's hard to do, but you cannot worry about things that aren't in your control. anything that's not in your control, such a key lesson is you cannot worry about it, because if it's out of your control, well, there's no point. So just kind of, as with everything, logistical aspects of this, the actual reality of getting it done, I just have to kind of work hard, pray for the best, and hope for a bit of luck as well, because obviously there's going to be quite a bit of luck involved in pulling this off.
Huge amounts, but huge amounts of everything too, and there's a lot that's within your control too. So it's awesome to see. Now, most important question to probably wrap up.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your dog.
The star of the show. Yeah. So Buddy he's just the star of the show. He's my baby. So I got him a few years ago, just before Road Atlantic. Actually, I got him as a kind of like a therapy dog for my mum, because as I mentioned, a close family member a cousin who my mum brought up, basically took his life, and it was really bad. So I basically surprised her with a golden retriever puppy, who's just become both of our baby. And he's just, and I was just, everywhere I go, I can't go without him. He swims with me. He obviously, now he's grown up. He just done the Welsh Free Peaks with me last weekend. He loves everything, and so I had to bring him along on an adventure as much as I could. So he loves his little trailer. So he's going to come with us for about 4,000 k across Europe in his little doggy trailer, and then he'll be taken home nice and safe. Not like everyone else is thinking. No, he's not climbing Everest, and he's certainly not swimming the Channel with me, as many quite silly people seem to think. I love him very much. I wouldn't put him through that. But yeah, so Buddy, he is the best golden retriever in the world, and he's definitely going to be morale. Although it's going to be hard pulling a 32 kilo dog across 4,000 k, I think the morale will kind of even itself out a little bit.
Yeah, he'll pay for himself somehow. It's probably not in your leg fatigue, but morale will be definitely there.
Absolutely, mate.
Where can people follow you? Where can people find out about it? Where can people support the charity? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so the best way is just all through now the centralised, like on the Instagram account, which is just _Mitch Hutch, so _Mitch Hutch, which is where you'll find the link to the GoFundMe page, which is soon to be changed to GiveStar actually. But yeah, so the link to the fundings on there, all the details, all the updates. So the 100-day countdown, there's a reel every single day now. We're on day 65, so obviously the countdown to the start line, every single day updates are on there, all the information about the charities on there as well. But obviously Savsim, SAVSIM, check them out on the website if you like. And there is also a website for us as well. So the expedition is just 12,000 km to Everest.com. But anyone that's listening, the best way by far is just because it's all the best information and all the updates daily is all on the Instagram _Mitch Hutch.
Love it, mate. And I'm sure that the following and the momentum behind this will increase even more as you go through. So can't wait to see this process and be inspired by it. So thanks for joining me, man. And
I hope you join me on some of the trip as well, mate.
Let's see, dude.
Absolutely. Cheers for that, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Take care.